Herod was an older king, like especially back in those days, people didn't live to be in their 60s, and Herod made it past that into his 60s. So it to me opened up the idea that, wow, could we get like Sir Anthony to play King Herod? And when he read the script, he really responded to it. We had a couple conversations, and then he jumped on board. And
welcome back to Under Oath. Today we're interviewing writer, producer, director, DJ Caruso. DJ, can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you?
There's so many movies you've done, and I looked over them, and I'm like, oh, man, it is so cool watching your career. But now your new project done by Netflix, this feels like a serious passion project.
It is. It is a passion project. I really felt compelled. For a while, I've been looking, because a script from Mary came across my desk maybe like 6-7 years ago, and it wasn't very good, but it piqued my interest. It made me think, wow, cinematically, Mary's story hadn't really been explored from her point of view specifically, and not in a realistic way. I mean, not as far as I'm concerned, not in an insular way where the whole movie's from her point of view and what she experienced and how that would be. And I thought, wow, there's a lot of contemporary elements to Mary's story over 2,000 years ago that are relevant today. So wouldn't it be great to tell a story that way? And it's so after searching, the script came across my desk and from Tim, and it's a beautiful script. And I thought, okay, I can put a little bit of myself in here and really tell a story that's important to me, but also I think important to inspire a lot of people.
Now, it's tough when you do anything based on a religious property. I mean, you need to get this thing right. I mean, I can't even imagine the fear when you're reading every bit of dialogue going, oh, God, is this right? Is this how I believe she would say it?
Yeah, there's a lot of that, because that there's going to be scrutiny from specific people that, no, you can't change the Bible, you can't do this. But this is a piece of art, like it's an artistic expression, and at the same time we honor the scripture and we do that, but you have to fill in the gaps cinematically. So the question is, how do we do that, still paying reverence to the scriptures, but filling this in? And how do we have a conversation where Mary's dialogue is a little bit more, I don't want to say contemporary, but yes, contemporary. So like they speak in the gospel is a little bit dated and stiff and doesn't quite flow as far as an organic scene. So how do you alter that line to make it feel good and still be honoring the text? So it's a fine line. You're always thinking about it. But at the end of the day, you just kind of put your head down and know we're making the movie for the right reason. And we want to show the honor and the grace and the courage that this woman had. And if you do that, and put your head down and make it and do the best you can, that's all you can really ask for. There's always going to be nitpickers about certain aspects that didn't really happen, or did that happen? But again, this is an artistic expression based on the scriptures of what Mary experienced.
Now, you're the director, but you've also written a lot of different works. How tough is it when you get, a script in front of you, you go, yeah, I love this, but I'd like to change this, this, and this. And do you actually get to do that?
Well, this is great because, particularly after you start reading it and going through rehearsals, I always like to have the writer. And so I would take down notes and say, oh, what if we did this and did this, and give options to Tim to come on and write and send them back. But Tim did the writing. But, I would say, like, I would do the writing within scenes, or find something, or do an improv that gives us something within the scene that didn't exist before, because I like to do that in rehearsal. So then I would jot that down and say, hey, what if she said this and he said this, and send it to Tim, he'd send it back, and then we kind of work back and forth. So when I have a writer with me, which I think is great, it's always great to have another set of eyes and ears with you when you're doing it. But in this case, it was nice for me to kind of send stuff to Tim, him work on it, clean it up, and then integrate it back into the script.
Now, you always hear about, fluidity on a set, that we allow for improv and everything else like that, but you're dealing with such a tough subject in this case. I mean, how much improv actually can be done in front of the camera?
Well, you can improv a lot in a way, situational improv, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's in the spoken word, right? But you can just say, okay, what if I'm going to take this situation, and particularly, let's say it's a scene with Mary and Joseph, and after Mary's almost been stoned, and they've kind of sit there, and it's all quiet, and Joseph basically says, I don't know what's going on, but I know that I will love this child, and I will love you the best I can. Well, Joseph in the gospel really doesn't have a voice. He doesn't really speak. There's one scene where Angel Gabriel visits him, and that's it. So how do you give Joseph a voice? And so that's a scene that was improv in a rehearsal room that, we created. And, so there's a way to do that, and still, because that's something that's a tangent. It's not in the scriptures itself. So how do we do that? So there was a lot of discovery from the actors in situations like that.
Now, I understand how important it is to have a good partner in a work environment and everything else like that, to have somebody behind you who knows this is going to be long hours and everything else like that. When you tell your wife there's a chance you're doing this script, does she say to you, is she excited? Does she say to you, "Hey, listen, this might be a risk"?
Well, I think she was excited, but of course you get a little bit nervous and you know it could be a risk. But you also know that like and you're touching on something that I think maybe the average person doesn't realize. Like when you sign on to a movie like this and you pick up your life and you go to Morocco for 4 or 5 months and you kind of leave your family and you do this and you realize like there's a beautiful honor and I'm blessed to do what I do, but there's a big life change when you go off and make a movie. It becomes like your semester at sea, if you want to say, like you're going away for 4 or 5 months and leaving your family and you're in a different time zone. So it's always those aspects of filmmaking that are very difficult because you're separated from your family. But no, she was really excited about this. She really reveres Mary, and Mary's very important to her. So she felt like the sacrifice we're making as a family, it would be important to get this story up on the big screen.
Now, you had mentioned that a lot of listeners, they don't understand this, leaving your family for 4 months. You're a creator. This is what you do for a living, but it's so tough because, you have 5 kids. I mean, being
Mhm.
away from your family for 4 months, and I don't know if you got to travel back. Morocco is not exactly popping back from New
No,
York.
you're not popping back and forth from Morocco, unfortunately. Because once you're there, you're there. So we did get a break over the Christmas break to come home and do Christmas last year. This time last year, I got to come home and then spend some Christmas, and then you're back there the whole time. So yeah, it's a toll. It takes a toll, but that's part of the price you pay, I guess, when you're doing what you do.
Now, you've worked with some fantastic actors, and they go, well, who's available to do this? Who do we have on this project? And suddenly go, well, Anthony Hopkins might be available. I mean, how do you just lose your mind when that becomes an option?
Well, you really go, wow, this is amazing because he's one of the best ever. He's a goat, and Herod was an older king, like especially back in those days, people didn't live to be in their 60s, and Herod made it past that into his 60s. So it to me opened up the idea that wow, could we get like Sir Anthony to play King Herod? And when he read the script, he really responded to it. We had a couple conversations, and then he jumped on board. And yeah, you're right. I've been fortunate to work with some amazing actors, and you're always wondering, well, what's his process? Like, how does it work for him? Do I step back? Do I get out of his way? How do I get involved? And so what I learned was he loved to have Zooms or talk. And prior to him arriving in Morocco, we did a lot of the groundwork of who Herod was and how to build his foundation, what he looked like, what the staff was like. And he was very inspired by the Ivan the Terrible film from years ago. And so we kind of built off that. And it was great to see his process and how he worked. And I always say, most importantly, when he got on set and the camera's rolling, he's 86 years old, but he's like a teenager who's on set for the very first time. He just loves what he's doing.
Now, you had mentioned something because I've talked to a bunch of directors, and we've talked about how they deal with different actors because you're in charge, but you also have to, there's a lot of politics. There's moving people around, making sure they're comfortable, making sure they can deliver on what you need. I mean, when you find out you have this rock star actor, is there any going, oh my God, I'm not quite sure is this normal or I mean, there has to be some trepidation when you have this individual and you're going, this dude is, I mean, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I think you have some trepidation, but you also what I've learned is because I've done enough. Like you think, how do I create an environment where he can succeed and do what he does best? And every single actor, actress is completely different in how you deal with them. I know maybe there's a blanket way other people have learned to direct and kind of make it, but I've always figured like having 5 children, I have to treat my older son a little bit different than I treat my third son because it's like their personalities are different. And is it encouragement? Is it inspiration? And what does this person and what does this actor need? But I think in Sir Anthony's case, it was really built. Once we built the foundation, you let him go on that train track and you just let him off, and he'll try something in one take, it'll fall on his face, and he loves it. If he fails, he actually loves failing. It's interesting. Like he's not afraid. And that inspired Noah and the other actors to see like you can take chances, you can kind of get out of your box. Why do 2 takes identical if it's not going to give you something different or organic, unless I need him to do his take again because I missed something? So it was a real learning experience for everyone on the set. But you're right. I wouldn't say it's trepidation. It's really, yeah, I guess it is trepidation, but how do I create the atmosphere for him to succeed? Because he's, like you said, every actor is different.
Now, when you find out you get an actor of his caliber and you finally get to work to him, what was your biggest surprise that you go, man, I didn't expect this?
My biggest surprise was that he found a little nugget of gold, like a little golden key for Herod that he laced into throughout the performance, where instead of just being this maniacal, jealous demigod king who really wanted to be tyrannical and killed his own family members when he felt threatened, he found this little space in Herod that when there was word of a Messiah or somebody coming, somebody new, that he was fearful and he wanted to destroy it. But there was a part of him that was curious about, like, what is this movement? What is there? There's something bigger in the world than just building palaces and building, the Caesarea, the port in there. And so he was a great builder of amazing things. But he found this little nugget where Herod was vulnerable because he almost was looking for a forgiveness or some sort of release from the person that he had become. And only Sir Anthony could find the little nugget like that.
Now, a lot of people, when they watch a movie and they see all the people involved in it, the question I always wonder is this, is when you see casting director, you're the director. How much are you involved in the casting of a movie?
You're fully involved. The casting director basically is someone, he or she, who presents you the options and basically you say, look, I'm looking for this kind of person and want to be like this. And so they read those people and then they present them to you. So the casting director presents you with the actors and helps you find the people. And then it's really up to you, the filmmaker, to make the decision on who will be in the movie. So you're heavily, heavily involved in the cast.
Now, when you have to cast Mary, I mean, this is a tough option. And you're going, I better get this right. I mean, how many people do you go through before you go, perfect, this is what I wanted?
There was hundreds of people, like from all over the world, the USA, UK, all these places, Eastern Europe. And then obviously we found Noah in Tel Aviv, which was great, from the region from which Mary was actually born. And so you go through a lot, but it was, I always tell this story, right away, because you don't want to compromise on Mary. Like you said, this is the Mary movie. This is the Mary story. So I was saying, I don't want to compromise and go, well, she has this, but she doesn't have this, or she can't. Noah had it all. She had this beauty, she had this grace, but she also had this internal fire and like this fierce sort of fire and confidence that I think Mary really needed to get through. And when I saw her first audition Link, I was really intrigued, and I got on with her the next day on a Zoom and started to talk to her, see what she was like as a person. She's athletic. She's a very, very tough girl. By the time you're 19 in Israel, you've already served like a year or two in the army. Like you know what I mean? So there's a real resilience there. And so I found that when we worked together that she was the right one. So there was no doubt that she was the right Mary for me. But it took a little bit to find her.
Now, you've been involved in a couple projects that haven't moved forward. You get this project that I really want to do this. How tough is it to convince like a Netflix or somebody else like that, hey, listen, I need to finance this. This needs to be done.
Well, it's tough. It's always tough to get a movie made, particularly nowadays. I've been around for a while, and there was a time when, Disney, Warner Brothers, Fox, Sony, everyone was making 25, 28 movies a year. Like they were literally, the theatrical market. And you realize like the studios are making over 130, 140 movies, counting Lionsgate. So there's all these opportunities and jobs. And then that sort of like, constricted, it contracted. And now it's like, so getting a movie made is like, you have to really get behind it. And this was a case where Netflix got involved once we get it going. So we needed to get some juice and some money and some stuff just to get us going, to show everybody what we were going to do. And once we did that, then Netflix came on board and was like, wow, we're all behind this. And I'm really, really excited that someone like Netflix, which is a great studio, super like filmmaker friendly. I've been in studios that haven't been incredibly filmmaker friendly, got behind a movie like this and said, we haven't done something like this. And we really want to be in this space, and we want to see what this movie can do. And we really believe in it. And so that was incredibly encouraging.
Now, how much autonomy did you have when in the creative process here? Because a lot of productions, you always have some studio head who wants to put his finger on it and everything else like that. And it's really tough to keep them away from, the creative aspect of it. I mean, how difficult is that to negotiate that?
Obviously it's situational because there might be certain things where, oh, you don't see eye to eye and you have to kind of go. And I've throughout my career, I've always felt like the studio would always back me if I was passionate and we're coming from a good reason. There's lots of times, let's say you do a film and you go and you have a preview and you find that like 50 people got confused in this scene because they didn't understand. So you go, okay, great. That's something I can address in the studio and I can work on it together. But I think you earn the respect, and I'm very collaborative. I'm a good listener, and I'm try to be, not tyrannical. So you kind of get it. And it depends on the relationship with the executive and how well they know the story. But I think, particularly in this instance, I was really fortunate because it was almost made in an independent way and got into Netflix. And so the train and things were moving. So I was really, really pleased with the way that the relationship in post-production, obviously you get notes and certain things, and we worked together on those. And it was a very, very easy process for me creatively.
I've been fortunate enough to write comic books and graphic novels, and every once in a while, I was given an editor, and that editor took something out that I really loved. And, later on, I'm going, I should not have allowed that to happen. In your career, you've done a lot of work. How many times did something get pulled? You go, no, I really wanted it. I should have fought to keep that in.
There's one scene that I just kicked myself because back when I first started on Salt and Sea, it was all on film. Like we were editing film and putting film together. And there was one section of the movie I just remember I thought was just so visually and sort of heartbreakingly stunning that I agreed to take it out, and they didn't force me to take it out. But I always think about that and the care we took about that. And there's this great scene with Val playing the piano, and Deborah Kara Unger would come and she sat next to him. And it was just this amazing moment. And there was rain on the wind. We really painted. It was really a insular character moment, which is probably 2.5, 3 minutes. Now that I look back, we never finished that because it was on film, right? We never got a digital version or anything like that. So I always think about, that's the one big regret I have. Like I should have let that scene play, because what's another 2.5 minutes? It's not anything except character stuff. But at the time we thought, oh, maybe the movie's long, or for whatever reason. But I wish I can go back and put that together, because it was some of the most satisfying cinematic visuals that I think I've ever put together.
Now, this is a question I ask to anybody in the industry who has kids. I myself have a child who wants to be an actress, and she's in college and she's fighting for it. And it's so hard for me not to give her advice. You have 5 kids. If one of these kids says, hey, Dad, I want to follow you, I want to do these things, I mean, how tough would it be for you to go, yeah, maybe you should just finish college first before you do this?
Yeah, I felt like, and when one has followed me in the industry, but I didn't encourage or discourage it. I wanted it to be his choice, and not to be, it's not like we have the tools of the trade. Like you can do a graphic novel, or maybe you can draw pictures, or if I was a plumber and I can teach him how to put a pipe together. And I don't know, like you can't really teach somebody like how to put your soul into what you do. And all I did was say, you're doing this for the right reason, because, and this is a business where people like to be famous or want to be famous or think they can do something. Like you have to do it not for that reason. I never got involved to think that I would be speaking to someone like you. It was something that I had to do. And if they have to do it and it's in their soul and it's in their DNA, then I would push and encourage them the best I could. But I do think particularly, because I have people lots of times, I'm sure I've always wanted to be an actor, and I think maybe I can try to be an actor. And you go, okay, well, that's fine. You're in your 40s now, but if it's something you want to do, like it's not a hobby, right? It's not a hobby.
No.
It's all in. You're either all in or you're not. So to answer your question, I didn't discourage it, or once the decision was made, of course I would be there and help and support, because it's a tough business. It's a tough business. It's not as pretty and as glamorous as people think.
I got one more question. I hope we can get it done in a minute. How important is it to have a quality mentor in a field like directing?
Oh, I was so blessed. John Badham, who directed Saturday Night Fever and War Games, took me under his wing. Like, he saw something in me when I was a PA, said, come to my company. I was like his second assistant, and he taught me so much, and he was so willing to teach. And I've been doing the best I can. Like, I think I'm mentoring over like maybe half a dozen people now, just like people, young filmmakers that need advice. If you want to get a composer, I just want to be there to help people, because I having a great mentor was vital to me. And he, I think in our business, people could be threatened by you if you can do something or do something better than they can. But no, having a mentor was incredibly invaluable to me, and really gave me the opportunity to learn and to show my stuff when the opportunity arose.
Well, DJ, I can't thank you enough for your time. Mary is on Netflix starting December 6th, and I'm sure you're going to love it. The talent, the quality of the production. Thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you. Great to speak with you. Thank you.